to the I-80 Club. Wednesday night in the club. Josh and Jack with you. It is another week of pods. Jack has his Pepsi.
I got my Pepsi.
I am enjoying a tasty beverage tonight.
Wait, is that a non-alcoholic one?
No,
It's party time tonight.
I'm drinking from, I'm a homer for Monolithic, obviously, but Monolithic and Lumen, which is in the Little Bohemia area. They did a brew together of a beer called Episode 4. This will surprise nobody. It's a double IPA, 8%. Hello.
That's like drinking 3 beers. Holy cow.
So, yeah, I figured,
I wish I had known. I would have upped my game a little bit, but this is pretty potent too. Don't forget. It is not only diet, but it has no caffeine.
Maybe you should text your family and say hey, bring me down a
bring me a beer. Hey,
yeah,
bring me a beer. Hey, kids, bring me a beer.
Yeah, perfect.
If
you're listening live, you're a patron. Maybe you are enjoying
yummy.
a beer. If you're watching live, you're also a patron. And if you are listening before Saturday, watching before Saturday, you're a patron, and we appreciate your patronage. Head to I80 or patreon.com/I80 Club today. If you are not, we would love to have you. We continue to talk off air a lot. Jack and I do about our upcoming plans for the season, but also the summer and some of the things that we are going to do before then. So we would love to have you join us at patreon.com/I80 Club.
Let me mention one thing to those who are viewing us on YouTube, probably after Friday the 7th. If you're watching after Friday the 7th and you're like, oh, these guys are talking about how they do a Saturday show too, I can't see it. It's because you can't see it on the YouTube because you have to be a member to see those. So you can look at our other videos, but the Saturday ones you can't see without becoming a member. So if you like this, we do one of these on Saturdays too. And you can go to patreon.com/I80 Club and get those. You can get them all on your YouTube, or you can get them live, and you can be on our Discord if you want to do that too. So just by way of explanation, I know that could be confusing if people look at the YouTube page, and we're probably going to have more people discovering us that way. So just wanted to make that clear.
Also, let's give a huge shout out, Jack, to Sam. He goes by LeShoon inside of the I80 Club. We have been talking quite a bit lately about fixing up the graphics department and just making everything better in that regard. Sam, we had a group DM that was going with Sam, for hours today as he kind of helped us out putting together the look. And so we appreciate that. He had some other stuff in the hopper too for football season type activities. But huge thank you to Sam because we want our YouTube page to not look bad. And then you did a ton of updating too. So shout out to Jack.
No problem. I'm sad nobody made a comment right away about how amazing it looked. I'm a little disappointed. Bigelow's all up in Vegas, so he doesn't have time to do that. But
he doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, there we go. I like it. That's what the kids would call clean. It's kind
very
of
clean.
Is that iced out? It feels a little iced out.
Yeah, I realized, Jack, before we got going, I deleted the old graph. I should have kept it in there so people could see, hey, remember? This is what it looked like a couple Saturdays ago when everybody was going cross-eyed for a few minutes.
Do you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the Mike Riley era alternate uniforms at Northwestern, the best ever Nebraska. That's what this is for us.
Hey, Nebraska won that game, so we're getting dubs.
Mike Riley did a great job in every respect in that game.
Wait, real quick, hot take. You think those are better than the black jerseys that they wore against Indiana in Scott Frost's second year with the bones on the sleeves?
Those were good too. Those are 1 and 2. I could remind me what they did with the helmets during that Indiana game because that might have been the problem.
Believe the N was black. Otherwise,
the N and the stripe was black.
I think so. That's a good
question.
Wasn't
it against the first time against UCLA? Didn't they do a red N and a black stripe?
They might have. The UCLA game, they did the stupid tire track look. Remember that?
Yeah.
It was bad. Oh, man, I got a picture of Wandale that I'm about to post in the Discord. Look at this.
Okay, hold on. Give me both of them right now. Okay, those are good.
Those are sweet, man.
Josh, I wanted them to do that exact uniform for so long.
Yes.
And have the helmet have the actual black end.
Yes.
I don't know how I rate those two. I honestly don't know. Those are for sure 1 and 1A, though. Like nothing, honestly, there's nothing close after those two. There's a giant gap between 1 and 2.
Dude,
Or
those
excuse me,
are
between 2 and 3.
Jack, did you remember that the numeral on the shoulder was red? Did you remember that? Look at that.
I don't even know if I like that, but I didn't remember it.
Man, those are some.
God, Wandale looks delightful in that.
Yeah.
I mean, the black shirts on the shoulder was freaking fantastic.
Just gorgeous. Just absolutely gorgeous. I'm with you. I always wanted them to do that. It was so nice when they finally did.
It was so dumb that it took them that many alternates to get to that one.
Yeah.
Is that 2020?
No, that's 2019.
2019.
Jack, I was thinking of this is an odd tangent to go on to start, but I was thinking of interviewing Scott Frost the other day, like what I would ask him. And I'll be honest, I have one question that I don't. Man, well, I don't know.
Honestly, that's a great question. That's a great question. We can spend a little time on this. You get three questions. You get 3 questions to ask Scott Frost in an interview.
All right, perfect. Because I have one that people would say, Josh, that's a waste of a question. But I'm going to ask it anyway. Frost, I need to know what happened to the numbers on the helmets. What's going on with the area codes? I need to know about the area codes.
They were so weird. He was so unnecessarily mysterious about why they went away.
Yes, like, he was.
You could have just made. I don't know why. Like, I can't even think of a controversial reason they would go away. But if there is, just make something up. You know?
Was there like a fight about area codes? Was the 402 and the 308, were they going after each other?
I have no idea. Was it a copyright violation? I don't know, but I can't believe even that felt like contentious during the Scott Frost era. Just be like,
question from Keena, got any of those autographed laptops? Yeah, can I get one of those autographed laptops?
Man, somebody's going to get that interview someday, Josh, and they're going to have to pick questions. I mean, we need to get them, think through the whole process. I mean, I think the obvious one is, do you regret coming? And I assume the answer is yes. Right?
Yeah. Scott Frost's fathers that didn't want children. Handshake meme on that exact question.
You almost have to ask, if you really could ask him, do you regret, like, or honestly, an interesting question is, where do you think you are right now if you say no to Nebraska and stay at Central Florida?
Oh, that's a fun one too. That's a fun one. Yeah, I would say, I guess I just go big picture. I would think, like, what was the point when you realized it was like kind of past the point of no return? Or did did you believe, all the way till the end that it was possible that, that you could still
that's a great question. Like, if we could have a truth serum, when did you know it was over?
Yeah, because I've heard going into the 2022 season that, everybody knew that it was over. And obviously he got fired 3 games into the season, so that makes sense.
Yes. I think the onside kick proves that he knew that it was over.
100%. Adam says, where do you think you'd be if the Akron game wasn't canceled? Hey, fans have been asking that question for years, so might as well ask the head coach.
That's true, too. Would you still be here if the forecast was a little less rainy that night?
Well, Matt, with a kind of a serious one, but certainly something that we have talked about before. Hey, Scott, thanks for doing this. How do you reflect on the impact the loss of your father had on you personally, and how did that affect your role as head coach? Now, that was before or during his third season. Yeah, that was COVID year.
Or it was it COVID year? I don't know.
It was 2020 for sure.
It was in the off season.
I remember him talking about it at his final press conference that year after they lost to Rutgers. But
let's see.
And what's it say?
The date on that? September 17, 2020.
All right, so literally a month before the season.
When they were going through the lawsuits.
Yeah. So they were probably just about to start practice.
That is a great question, because like that is one of the things that I have in the back of my mind. Like I get, sarcastic, or I get all of these things. And then I get that in the back of my mind about what that whole situation was like for him. And that is the quickest way to get me to feel empathy for what he was going through during that time.
Sure.
And there have been a few people who have mentioned it, and whatever was, whatever was and wasn't happening in his personal life in that time and all the rumors, like that's the quickest way for me to be like, man, I had to ease up on this dude. Seriously. Yeah. So like that would be if you had truth serum, that'd be a really interesting one.
Yeah, because I mean, like to unpack it a little.
Sorry. No, go ahead, Josh.
No, I was just gonna say to unpack it a little bit more. Like, so he had already had 2 seasons, right? Season 1, I think we all forgave him for it very quickly. In the moment, we're forgiving him for it. We're making excuses. We're finding reasons why it wasn't, going to go the way it did. They start off the next year 4-2. They have the bad loss to Colorado as their first loss. They get blown out by Ohio State, but they're 4-2. And I remember Jack sending out a tweet after they won that game against Northwestern, which we have done a Be Kind Husker Rewind, one of the worst rewatches of my entire life. And at that moment in time, Nebraska, after starting 0-6, had gone 8-4 in the next 12 games under Scott Frost. And then they go 1-5 the rest of the way. And so like I use that as a long setup to say, going into the next season before his dad passed, the trajectory I thought was already kind of being decided, and it was being decided in a negative way. But I mean, if you want to give the guy grace, pandemic's happening, shit's hitting the fan everywhere. His dad passes away. And is the fork in the road actually not 2019? The fork in the road is 2020. And that is what set them down the path that they ultimately found themselves on.
I wonder about that for sure. I definitely wonder about that.
It's a great question.
Yeah. I would ask him about the true story of the onside kick. I mean, I'd have to.
Oh, yeah, because you've told it in the club before.
That's true. I mean, I think I probably said it in a boardroom, but I think he was. I think he knew it was over.
Well, and I mean, I've talked about it before, and so if you're new here, I'll mention it again. He missed meetings that week. He missed meetings ahead of the game overseas, like coaches' meetings. And so, the idea that he was not fully engaged there with the program, I think is a very fair thing to bring up, because I think that showed itself in his actions in the lead up to the game. And then, the onside kick is like this whole extra layer on top of that, because they're up by 2 scores when that happens. Mm-hmm. And then they lose.
Yeah. I think I would ask him, how would I phrase this to him? Because it's an incredibly loaded question. Did you have a hard time separating your misgivings that arose during your time as a player from the way that you took the program over? And it's probably not a great question, because his answer is going to be no,
Yeah.
But it's loaded, because I think he came in with those, and had them in the back of his mind constantly.
Yeah.
Like, I think it had a big impact on who he was during the time that he was a coach.
Husker, from you, was this just all about Frankie London? And I know that I assume that said with a hint of sarcasm, but on the other hand, Jack, how many times did he bring that story up in his Monday press conferences? How many times did we hear about him getting booed during the UCF game in 1997?
I mean, I ask it because he was the one who brought it up.
Exactly.
On multiple occasions.
Yeah.
On multiple occasions. So, yeah, honestly, I would ask him to really tell his truth about how that impacted his trajectory.
Well,
from that moment on.
Here's a story, Jack. I don't know if I've ever told this publicly, but I feel comfortable saying it now, just given that it's so far past the fact. So in the lead up to him coming to Nebraska, and by lead up, I mean like the years before him coming to Nebraska, I chatted with and I'm happy that Josh asked what he did. Did you really ever want the Nebraska job?
Yeah.
All right. So I talked to a lot of people, folks in the media, former teammates, fans in general that knew him. And one of the questions that I remember asking people was, at what point do you think he'll be at Nebraska? When are you hoping that he's at Nebraska? Just assuming, because this was when he was at Oregon. Oh, man, he's the hotshot at Oregon. When's he going to be here? And I remember talking to somebody that I would describe as fairly close to him that told me there is no way he will ever come to Nebraska. There is no way he does not want to coach at Nebraska. He probably did. This is me inferring now. He probably did at one point in time. He does not want to anymore. and that is because of what unfolded in the late 90s. And so to go back to the question from Josh, did you really ever really want the Nebraska job? At what point does that change? Obviously, it was something that he was thinking about. There's the famous story of him and the reporter that covered UCF sitting in the golf
cart. Yep.
So like we've seen the comic or we've heard the story. We read the column. So like that stuff is very real. And yeah, like the relationship that he had or the lack thereof that he had with a lot of players from that era, like that stuff is I mean, it's not wrong. It's true. And so why change? What was it ultimately about the pull of this place that was able to overcome years of people thinking, yeah, there's no way in hell he's going to come back?
Yeah. Yeah. So much. And it is still, and here we are talking about again. And Josh, we've alluded to this many times, but nearly every time we were the ones who brought this up today, to be fair, but how many times when we bring up just like open things people want to talk about? It happened last time we did a chat sack, right? Somebody brought up Frost. Again, there is undying interest. There is just undying interest in no matter how people feel about it, if they're bitter, if they're, still want to defend him in some way, there is just a flame that cannot be put out in terms of the interest in Scott Frost. What happened? What are the stories that we don't know?
Yeah. I mean, so I'll be honest. One of the things that I have been thinking about is just like, we have spent many times talking about the idea of a book. Someone should write a book. I think we asked that of Dirk when he joined us for the first time. Hey, Dirk, you think anybody will write a book? Do you want to write a book? And everyone always says, no. It seems like, Jack, we've reached a point where I don't know if it's going to happen. It's going to be years down the road now. It's not going to be like we never got that article. And so I've been wondering, what would a long form podcast series look like if someone were to do the deep dive? And the obviously the most difficult part about that entire process would be like, you have to get a lot of people and that they're going to talk on the record. You and I have listened to a few of the slow burn seasons before. And like what makes those interesting is that you hear voices of people that were involved in the lives of the subjects like last year it was about Clarence Thomas, and obviously we won't get political, but there were people who talk in that knew Clarence Thomas when he was young. They knew him when he was in college. They knew him after college. And if you're going to do the same thing with Nebraska, you can't just be like going off record and here's what Tom Chattel wrote. No, you have to have like Adrian Martinez. Tell me about the Northwestern game. That's another question, Jack, that I would ask. Why did you lie about about Adrian Martinez's, injury? You joked about lupus when the guy had bands in his mouth. Everybody saw the rubber bands in his mouth. Like what about, so like you would have to talk to Adrian Martinez and you would have to have him willing to talk about some of these things. And so you wonder what that would look like.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I didn't mean to go, into a whole thing about it, but I know everybody wants to, most people always want to hear about it. So since it came up, I thought I would go down that road a little bit, because if someone ever gets that chance, that is going to be it's going to be a tough task figuring out what to ask him and what he will answer. In all of that. So and I don't know if it ever will. I really don't.
For sure.
All right. What else is going on tonight?
I was just going to ask you, Jack, what's on your mind right now?
Well, I saw, a couple things. Nebraska got a 4-star running back today. Did you see that?
I did. I saw this and heard about this.
I saw that. I watched not all of it. I watched a bunch of his huddle film. Very fast, it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know much about this guy other than that he's a 4-star top 25 running back in the nation, from the St. Louis area. Josh, does it seem to you like Nebraska, even now that it seems like recruiting again is in one of those waves where it's bumped up in terms of the quality of guy that they're recruiting, it feels like so rarely has Nebraska even been mentioned alongside the best of the best running backs. Yeah. Is that like, I feel like we flirted with other positions a lot, whether you
some good wide receivers have come in,
whether you've ended up landing them or not. But
like Micah Parsons visited Nebraska when he was in high school.
Right.
He came for Friday
obviously
Night Lights.
Quarterback, obviously quarterback is maybe where they've done, at least in terms of the star rankings, is as good as anywhere for the last
Buki. Don't forget about Buki.
8 years. Buki, right? Buki getting the interest from him. There's been some offensive line types, but like, when was there even a name? And I don't follow closely enough for recruiting to really go through and answer this question very well, but like, when was the last time we were even excited about a running back recruit? And, there was a name that we could even name a name like we can with some of the guys that we are right now.
I mean, that's a good question.
With Buki, it just, I don't know. Why is the
Braylon Hurd?
Yeah.
He's the first guy that I think of, or Jordan Stevenson. Alex brings up Aaron Green. Yeah, Aaron Green.
That's what I was going to say. That might be the last one.
That was 2011, man. Think about that.
What?
That was 2011.
That was 2011?
He played in the Ohio State comeback.
TCU, right?
Yeah.
I mean, man, like, people weren't anybody that they got. Like, I don't think Ozigbo was a big coup recruiting necessarily, although he had a very solid career. Yeah, like, that's forever. That's 13 years.
Yeah.
And what is it? Why is that? It feels like there's a real difficulty with that position, especially, which is incredibly frustrating because it's always one of the positions that we're like, we've gone on about this, Josh. We've done an analysis, and the rosters bear out the fact that they haven't recruited anyone well, because we've talked about this. We've gone back for 7, 8, 9, 10 years and been like, they've never had an obvious guy at running back. Yeah. Really, since Abdullah, maybe Ozigbo.
Yeah. And I feel like, to answer your question, which it seemed like you were leading to, of like, why hasn't that happened? Like, I feel like that's the answer right there. I think it's chicken or egg. I think the reason, and now it has gotten into this vicious cycle of they don't have a good running back, and then they can't recruit a good running back, which means they don't have a good running back, which means they can't recruit a good running back.
They haven't been able to point to anyone since Amir Abdullah.
And the guys that have come in and showed flashes, Josh mentions Terrell Newby. Remember Trey Bryan and his old man arthritis knees?
True.
As a 20-year-old.
People were kind of excited about him. People were kind of excited. You know what? People were kind of excited about Mikhail Wilbon, I guess, too.
Oh, hey, Josh says, are we forgetting Maurice Washington? Excellent point.
Fair enough.
We did forget about Maurice Washington. I mean,
Greg
right, Bell. Remember slow Greg Bell? How excited we were for that guy in 2018, and then he got run down in the Colorado game.
Right.
And Frost is like, he's too slow. We thought he would have more burst than that. So
I don't know, man. I'm just I am dying. But okay, Bruce says I'm the outlier, but I honestly don't feel our running backs are that bad. I think we have yet to pair up with a good O-line and a competent quarterback. Man, I don't know if I agree with that.
It'd be nice if Bruce was right. Yeah, I'm with you. We've talked about this
after
so much.
I think Ozigbo was solid, but
he had 1,000 yards.
And before that, it was Abdullah. Who am I missing?
Nobody.
Am I missing somebody?
No, 1,000 yards.
I mean, they played Wandale. He obviously was talented, but he wasn't a running back.
And Mo Washington was very talented. Obviously, all the off the field stuff was an issue, and he was a player that would get hit sometimes and just go down and go off to the sidelines. He was very thin. He was tall and skinny, and I think that did him in. And I mean, the guy, again, he had a whole host of issues that it wasn't just, is he a good enough running back? I think it went a lot further than that with him.
Right. So I don't know. I am really desirous of someone close to an all conference caliber running back. I mean, it feels like you feel miles away from that.
Well, hey, let me going back to what Bruce said. He says, don't feel our running backs are that bad. I think we've yet to pair a good O-line with a competent quarterback. Do you think that they can get, can the running backs be better because they have a quarterback who can throw the football this year? Because, I mean, that's ultimately what you're going to hope for. The quarterback run game is going to be non-existent. And so if Nebraska is going to have a competent running game, it will have to entirely come from the running back room. It will not be because Dylan Raiola can run the ball. But, to ask the question again, can he make them better by being someone that when he drops back to pass, you have to respect it? And thus him passing sets up the run, and then them running well sets up the pass.
Yeah, I'm going through, I mean, the all-time rushing list, which isn't necessarily the greatest way to go through and try and find this, but just looking at the all-time rushers that have been at Nebraska.
This is going to make you depressed.
2010. I'm going to read you all of them after 2010. Taylor Martinez is number 9, not a running back. Okay.
No.
And then we go down. Ozigbo is number 26. Oh, Newbie is next at 24. Ozigbo is next at 26. And then
you missed Abdullah, obviously.
Abdullah, I did miss Abdullah.
He was like second or third.
Oh, he's number 2. I forgot.
Yeah.
He ended up number 2 of all time. I didn't even look that high. Yeah. Amani Cross is 38. So you got Amani Cross in 2012.
What about Roy Halou? Did you skip Roy Halou?
That wasn't after. Well, that ended in 2010.
Okay.
So, yeah, 2010 would have been Roy Halou. So that would have been the earliest there. And then we got
Rex. You forgot Rex.
Okay, I'm doing a terrible job with this.
Yeah, let's just skip looking at the old heads because you're just skipping all the good guys.
Rex, I should have started. You should have started
if you start after Amir Abdullah, then the list is
right. That's really what the conversation was. So Rex would be after Amir Abdullah, Terrell Newby after Amir Abdullah, Ozigbo, and it's after Ozigbo that the gap really, Dedrick Mills is 52.
Yuck. Furl says, I still love Emmett Johnson. Sue me. See, and it's funny, man. Like, we talked about him a lot last year. I wanted them to give him the ball, but it was less about me thinking that the guy is awesome and more that I just didn't want them to throw or rush the ball as much with Heinrich Harburg. That was my angle with Emmett Johnson. But we'll see.
I don't know. Maybe it's not the recruits, but I can't believe this. I seem to be getting some pushback on this. That Nebraska running backs have, not from you, Josh, from the chat, that Nebraska running backs have been so incredibly meh for so long that it's been a huge problem with the offense. Like I'm
people pushing back against that, or are they pushing back against the idea that the room can be good this year?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not talking. I don't know. Well, I mean, Bruce said something, and I think Mav Scribator said, they've been recruiting top 25 classes. It's just a matter of what we've done with them. I guess he's saying, man, I don't know. There's just been nothing.
I guess what's your hypothesis here?
My hypothesis is that the running backs have sucked since Amir Abdullah.
Yes. I see. Now you're not going to get any pushback from me on that.
I felt like that everyone felt that, but yeah.
Yeah. It's
hurt. That's the other thing. It's hurt, and it's a little mind-numbing that you've had, even though you haven't had a great run of teams in that time, you've still had some stars at some other positions. And it was a fair point by D'Lo. Maurice Washington was in here, and it didn't. Had he stayed around, I think that might have been something a little bit more special. And
definitely had the most potential of any of the guys that flamed out since Amir Abdullah. I would say that he was the guy who I thought had the most potential to be really, really good. Now, again,
for sure,
it was also going back to the first 15 minutes of tonight's pod. It was such a weird time, and so maybe it's not going to work out anyway, right? Because of what he's surrounded by. But, he ends up leaving the program, and suddenly a wide receiver is playing running back. And, that's how it was for 2019, and that's how it was for what, 2021 or for 2020, excuse me. Wandale was carrying the ball, and then he leaves and he goes to Kentucky, and suddenly he's catching, the ball a ton of times, and now he's in the NFL.
Right. And I mean, at that point you overlap with Ramir then after that, right?
Yeah.
Then he gets involved in 2021.
Yeah. And that's,
he got here in 2019.
That's crazy. I don't mean to belabor the point with this year's room, but man, I wish that I was as optimistic as some people are with the running back room, but it just seems to me like it is a lot of this guy was hurt and he's going to bounce back. That's the story with him. That's the story with some of the other guys in that room. And it's been too long. Ramir, I feel like being an impact player, it's been too wrong. Yeah. Or it's been too long, excuse me. So
I would say I think just from our previous conversations, I am more optimistic about this running back room even than you are, despite what I just said. That's a different thing, but I don't know. I think you're rightfully so giving yourself a lot of room for, there's a lot of skepticism about the injured guys, right? And what they can really be. Will they ever be anything?
Yeah.
And, I think Emmett Johnson does have some potential, and I still don't, and Dowdell looks better.
And he was healthy. So that's a positive.
And I watched watched some highlights the other day. He had he had that run against, I think, Iowa. Was
Emmett?
it Iowa? Emmett Johnson, right? Against,
like every game, he would have a carry of at least 20 yards. Like he was very, very consistent in his yards per carry and having a long run of about 20. But that's the thing. I think his floor is solid. I think his floor is solidly high. I think his ceiling is fairly low, though.
Yes.
Like in terms of being able to break through, like some of the guys that we would like to see.
To answer Bruce's question from earlier, he says, speaking of running back hype, Jack, do you recall the discourse on Sports Nightly from Jim Rose and Gary when Thunder Collins was coming to town? I talk about this a lot. Yes. I mean, Gary was the ultimate Thunder Collins hype man. Gary spent an entire summer, Josh, on Sports Nightly when I was in law school, hyping Thunder Collins to the point that I had been worked up into a lather about the entire thing.
You?
Yes.
You a lather?
Well, Thunder Collins. And I still, we've talked about my jersey several times. My white jersey with the piping, the Thunder Collins number on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was right coinciding with that whole thing. I bought into the hype thanks primarily to Gary Sharp. He used to just
Gary
play,
Sharp.
Yes. Gary used to just play like Thunderstruck. It was on a summer night on Sports Nightly. He would just play Thunderstruck. And he would just be like, Thunder Collins during the song the entire time. He hyped him so hard. And I was I think I was as excited for him as a player coming in without having seen them play, maybe more than anyone except for perhaps Tommy Frazier. Very few I didn't feel that way. So, yeah. I don't know. Ramir, Irvin, who knows? And what about Dowdell? He looked good in the spring game, Josh.
Yeah,
he did not look fast. Speaking of not fast running backs.
That was someone who it seems like got off to a slow start in the spring. And by the end of the spring, maybe, improving and having a good spring game. So, we'll see.
Somebody mentioned, wasn't it? I thought somebody said they thought maybe they might grab a running back out of the portal. It is interesting. I'm not bringing up Casey Thompson, so just don't even bring that up.
Right,
is it interesting that not even a quarterback? Like, I had heard people speculate they might bring a wide receiver in, another running back in. I'm assuming none of that's happening now at this point. They're not bringing in a quarterback, wide receiver, or a running back, or anyone else in the portal at this point. I mean, I know the time for leaving is closed, but you could still have people who are hanging out there.
Yeah, you can add anybody all the way until the start of the season.
Until school starts. So, I mean, Josh, do we assume the roster is the roster now at this point?
I mean, certainly a safe assumption, unless there's somebody else out there that, pops up out of nowhere. Yeah, and we're not going to do this again. We're not going to do this again. I don't feel like doing this again.
I am asking you
I just said they're probably done.
Sure, I'm asking you a legit fair question.
Nope, I don't know.
I think it's fair to ask if they're going to have it, if there's going to be another transfer portal edition. I think inquiring.
So if I say no, then we just move on. We do something else.
Well, I guess so. Ahan says it's too early to tell.
Probably.
You think it's done? Okay, writing that down.
See, why do you always do this? Why when I give you a prediction, why is this the thing?
Gosh,
you're so weird.
No transfer.
I'm guessing no.
Okay.
We're trying to get new subscribers, Jack, and you're gonna act this way.
There we go. Got that right next to me, just in case you're wrong.
I would love to be wrong. I would love
to.
I would love for them to add an average quarterback, so then you would just stop crying for 5 seconds. It'd be glorious for all of us. Matt says that's the thumbnail. Yes, Jack, that's the thumbnail. Great work. Josh, inquiring minds equals one mind. Jack's mind. Yeah, you're the only person. We've all moved on. We've all made peace with it, Jack. We've all made peace.
That's dumb. That's obviously not true. People would obviously be interested if they were adding an offensive skill player to their offense this year and would be curious about that, especially when there was a lot of talk about that happening. And I'm not even talking about you, which,
sometimes Jack, Sometimes people get predictions wrong. Sometimes people say 10-2 for Nebraska and they go 3-9.
It was a bit. It was a bit. Was yours a bit? Maybe yours was a bit. Just go with that. Just be like, it was a bit, Jack.
No, I would never do that.
When I'm wrong, Josh.
When I'm wrong, I'll admit that I'm wrong. I'm stunned that they're not adding another quarterback, but I also don't think it's a big deal. I don't think it's a big deal. That's the more interesting discussion. Is it a big deal? The answer is no. But we're not going to do this.
I just figured you had some like deep in the bowels of Memorial Stadium source who was in contact with that quarterback transfer and was sending you encrypted DMs telling you all of the details about that. And so
I'll give you a serious thing.
My bad.
I think that Kalen playing better than he did in the spring, I think maybe cooled them on adding another player for the point of, because they were going to add a guy just for the sake of adding a body. And so I feel like they don't feel like they have to anymore.
If I'm being serious. Actually, I mean, if I had to guess, I actually would think it was Harburg.
Him playing better?
Harburg having a better spring than they thought would be my guess.
Yeah.
If I had to guess in a recent reason.
I mean, honestly, all three of them playing at the level they did, you wonder if it just set them up. You know, and it's funny because Brendan says that's got to be fool's gold. Like, again, if we want to explore this topic with the sincerity that it deserves,
which I try to all of the time.
No, you don't. But there's no, like, if you add another guy, you're adding a player just to have a body. That's all that this is about now. I think that they have told, and this is because of what you always talk about, Jack. How are you going to get a player to come in that's going to be a backup quarterback that knows they're coming in to be okay? So if you agree with that, then I think
I didn't think they were getting one.
Yeah, and so I think what happened in the spring was probably them saying, "Oh, okay, it would be pretty pointless to bring in an extra body. We don't need an extra body because we believe in our depth." I think that's what's happening right now.
I fully agree with you that it was going to take a unicorn to come in and do that. But I came in when I had those conversations. It was me thinking Harburg was done playing quarterback outside.
I thought he'd be tight end by now.
Yeah. So, like, I mean, that's got to be the biggest change in the way that I look at the situation. Is they're still bought into him as a quarterback. But yeah, Josh, if you had asked me, well, I'm sure we said it on podcasts. Like, I thought they were going to make him some kind of a Taysom Hill specialty player emergency quarterback is what I thought. So if 100%. if he's not, my position on that changes a little bit, but that's what I was going in with.
But real quick, what you're saying is if he actually stays at quarterback and does not move around, then, they have what you wanted, right? They have the third quarterback.
You need one less for sure. Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you've got what you think are three legit full-time quarterbacks, if you have three legit full-time quarterbacks, all of which you think it's going to be difficult to get anyone out of the portal that's any better than those three, then no, you don't get one. But I did not think Harburg was going to be in that group, and nobody did. I mean, let's be honest. Coming out of last season, no one thought that Harburg was going to be a legitimate number 2, let alone a legitimate number 3, right?
Exactly.
So, that's the mindset that we were coming from. And I don't know, like, I still don't know. Do we really believe it about Harburg? Like, what happens if and when he does have to come in at some point? And I'm not saying some season ending thing, but like, how do we feel about that? And how quickly are people going to be like, what about Kalen, right? In that situation?
Well, I mean, that's the question. Is it going to be him or is it going to be Kalen that would come in next? I have no idea. I mean, this is the part that I don't like about this discussion is assuming a very dark thing is happening to the season, right? And I understand why you would want to explore that, because a quarterback has gotten hurt pretty much every year for a decade.
Yeah, I think about it all the time. I'm worried about it for the season. So
yeah, it's funny. I am not, man. My concern is so much less about the quarterback depth than it's about the running back situation, like we talked about earlier, or maybe a little bit of regression, with the defense or the offensive line not stepping up a little bit more, or, being wrong about one of the wide receivers. And yet the depth of the quarterback room isn't something that I think about a ton. But I don't know what they do next. Adam says, I believe the staff believes it. And I guess I'll take a few of those words and I'll kind of say, I'll believe it when I see it. If he goes down, I mean, on one hand, Harburg has a lot of experience. On the other hand, that experience is bad. You know, like it's a horrific time. So
there's a part of me that still thinks Kalen will be the number 2 for real.
I think so too. If I had to bet money on a horrible thing happens and they have to play multiple games without the guy, I think it's going to be Kalen. That's what I would guess. If it's a drive
I don't disagree with that.
Who knows? But if it's games, I think that's when it changes.
Right, because red shirts and all that play in.
Correct.
Too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure, ideally, they'd like to redshirt him. I'm sure of it. Like, I think they would. They would love to keep him under 4 games.
Oh,
year.
yeah.
Kalen.
100%. Because the dream is that Dylan Raiola is in the NFL in 3 seasons, and that after that, Kalen is a redshirt sophomore.
Yeah.
Or a redshirt junior. Now, best laid plans, like that never works, especially now. You know, the idea of like, oh, yeah, they'll hand it off to the junior, who will hand it off to the sophomore, who will hand it off to the junior. That never happens. But yeah, I think that's definitely the dream. I think that's what they want to do. I think they believe in Kalen. I think that Kalen, like I will say this, I think Kalen believes in the staff to the extent that I feel pretty confident, Jack, that the guy's not going to transfer anytime soon. Like, what are we talking about? The guy, you know, committed to Nebraska, thought that he was all the way in, suddenly is finding out that Raiola is coming because of group chats popping off, you know, if I'm to understand everything correctly, and stuck with his commitment and signed with Nebraska. Mm-hmm. Like, he could have bailed in December, and yet he hasn't.
And Matt Scribator asked a fair question too. What's his long-term trajectory? Kalen's, you know, Dylan playing however long, and they just brought in this TJ Lateef guy who I assume is coming in, and he expects he'll be playing after Dylan Raiola's done.
Let me turn the conversation a different way. Going back to what we have talked about today in a serious discussion, or when we just yelled at each other for 30 minutes, you got to have depth, you know, like maybe his long-term trajectory is maybe he's a starter in 3 years, or maybe he's a guy that's a backup for 4 years.
I love it. I love it. But I don't trust that's realistic.
Of course not. You shouldn't. It's 2024 and it will be 2028. You know, like saying all this out loud. I mean, it was hard to believe this stuff in like 2004. It's even harder now when the stats say that half of the quarterback room are going to leave.
I get what you're saying about Kalen, but man, things change, you know?
Yeah, Josh agrees with you. He says he's stuck with it based on the timing.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? A year, who knows what things feel like in a year or 2 years?
100%.
Without a doubt. But that is, it is interesting is like, what is that area? What is that area? And I don't think that's really quarterback depth is probably not my number one in that, but like when you're thinking about this season, potentially just, you know, not getting to where you hope it is. I don't even know if going off the rails is the thing, but you know, being
like slightly let down because
if it's a letdown, why? What is the biggest reason that happens? And but honestly, it's hard for me not to think a quarterback injury isn't the biggest thing I'm afraid of for that happen. You know, I take it back. It honestly is.
All right, so let me again.
And I'm trying to think what my number 2 is. It's probably just no solid running game.
All right, so let's be I feel like this has been our most productive quarterback discussion that we have ever had. All right, so if you agree with that, why is adding somebody going to help that, right? Like that's I think always been my point whenever we discuss this too.
Like I said,
I asked you a question.
Like I said, I'm giving you an answer. I'm sorry, I put my hands up.
Triggered much.
Like I said, if Harburg is there and Harburg is a real legit backup, then that changes the situation, and I would understand why they wouldn't go for a transfer, which I thought I just explained.
Okay. Adam, by the way, answering your question says defense sucking for some reason.
Yeah, that's a good question. Like that's not in mine. It should be maybe, but Josh is not in mine. You mentioned wide receiver and running back too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would start with, I think bringing up defense is very fair because I did it earlier. Like the sacks and the turnovers not coming. Like, I feel like that has to happen this year. And so if it doesn't happen, it's like, wow, that's crazy because it's just going to make everything so much more difficult. That said, I am in the continued belief that the offense will not be turning the ball over every other drive. And so I think the defense is going to be fine. So I would look at offense and I would look at the skill positions. I would look at the running back position and say the running back room is not going to give them enough help. and that their play calling will be so predictable, but in the inverse of last year. Last year was predictable because they were going to run the ball a whole lot. The teams loaded the hell out of the box. They had 9 in the box, 8 in the box all the time. Nebraska couldn't run the ball. All right, so I would start there, and I would say that then they're going to throw the ball a ton, and it goes back to your injury concerns or just a freshman having to throw the ball 30 times a game. I think that could be a problem. Look, I am putting a lot of stock in or a lot of eggs in the basket of good receivers or improved receivers and a tight end room. I think that is going to improve as well. And so, like, I think all of my stuff like last year is going to be wrapped up in skill position. That said, I still am way more confident this year than I was last year. I was so down on the skill position last year, and I'm not as much as down on. I think the receivers are going to be good, and I think the tight ends have a chance to be pretty solid. And I think the offensive line is going to improve. It's all going to come down to the running game, man.
If I had to push myself on a fear about the defense, it's that they still, for whatever reason, this shouldn't happen, but they still are not able to generate the pressure that they need to against good quarterbacks and our
like Shedeur Sanders in week 2, and it's like, oh God,
100%. Shedeur,
that's the third down conversion on the first drive of the game, that type of garbage.
And the cornerback situation where one of the potential starters, I guess, is injured and maybe out, and he's pretty green anyway, and the other guy's been playing 2 positions, right, for most of his college career. So that, the kind of a combination of where the pressure still isn't happening and the cornerbacks get a bit feasted on against good quarterbacks. But honestly, Josh, I don't think that'll happen. I really don't. I think they're going to be able to generate pressure for sure better than they did last year. I just think there's going to be enough.
Don't you think they were good at getting pressure and they were a ton of young guys? Whoa. What happens when it's these freshmen that are suddenly sophomores?
Right. And Lenhart got injured, which I think took a bunch, that hurt a bunch of that in the middle of the season. So that's me. That's if you're pushing me to come up with a concern about
Jack, is there a world where the defensive line is just wrecking shit all year long?
Yes, they're 100%.
I think we need to prepare ourselves for the defensive line wrecking shit all year long.
If anyone watched Nash Hutmaker last year,
I know, man.
He killed people. Yeah. And he is your nose guard right in the middle. He's not, goodness sakes, Josh, I sure hope losing that weight and putting it back on didn't make him a different player, but he should be similar to what he was last year. And all you're doing is taking young guys at the edge rushers and putting another year of strength and experience on those guys. And Ty Robinson too, right?
Yeah.
Another guy who's just a veteran. And I have, those guys are who they are, right? Ty Robinson and Nash, you know who they are at this point. And then you got about 7 guys on the edges that you need to find 2 of them that really developed out of a huge group of people. This is why this is why I end up sounding so bullish about the defense is this guy. It's just hard to find. I think there's a
glaring weaknesses.
Yes.
Right?
I think if you have to, it's at the cornerback position.
JB says, I'm concerned about the depth at linebacker and how Big Ten offenses were starting to figure it out at the end of the season. Also, recent seasons were 2 different coaching staffs. Riley's defense was okay in 16. Diaco comes in, dumpster fire. Frost's defense was really good in 21, brought almost everyone back in 2022, and it was a dumpster fire until Bush took over as interim DC. All right, so I'm going to no offense, JB, I'm going to disagree with basically this entire post. So the defense was okay in 16, and then it was a disaster the next year. That's true, but that's because they changed the coordinator. Frost defense was good in 21. They did not bring almost everyone back in 22. That defense was way different in terms of personnel. Coaching staff, yes. Personnel, all of their old guys were suddenly gone. I'll also pick a bone with the first part of the message. Here are the points that the team scored in regulation on Nebraska in the 4 losses. 20, 13, 17, 13. That doesn't look to me like figuring it out. Is that more than the 7 points or 6 points that Purdue scored, the 9 that Northwestern scored, the 7 that Illinois scored? Certainly. But man, I just do not know if we can underestimate how much the defense hurt or was hurt because the offense turned the ball over every 5 seconds. Like, that is, I think, where my bullishness most lies when I start getting excited about this year. When I can be talked into, Jack, a 2024 season that has them going 8-4, 9-3. How can I get talked into that? Well, because the offense doesn't turn the ball over 5 seconds, and the defense is better by osmosis, and then all of the other stuff too. So,
D'Lo asks, who stops Minnesota on 4th and 10 with the game on the line? Isaac Gifford.
This year?
Isaac Gifford. Yeah. 100%.
Oh, I was just going to say, they get to the quarterback this time around. Like,
they get to the quarterback, but
Josh has been right. Like, Josh pointed out last year, like, they could not get off the field on 3rd down. I'm not going to argue with any of that. But if the offense is scoring a little bit more and the offense is not turning the ball over a whole lot more, the defense doesn't have to be in position all the time where these drives are going to be like live or die. Everything has come down. Like, the entire 4th quarter of like 4 or 5 games last year came entirely on the defense's shoulders. And yeah, they gave it up multiple times, but I don't know. I believe.
I'm just pulling it up I pulled it up. This is not fully accurate necessarily, but just like that Lads website to look at what they have for the depth chart. So defensive end, left defensive end, Robinson, Elijah Judy, 1-2. Right defensive end, Jamari Butler, Cam Lenhart, James Williams, 3. Nose tackle, Hutmaker, Van Poppel. I feel really good about all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jack linebacker, MJ Sherman, Prince Will. Okay. MJ Sherman wasn't what I thought he would be last year. That he actually was one of the few disappointing players on the defense last year, I would say. Middle linebacker.
Who was?
MJ Sherman.
Yes.
Middle linebacker, Javen Wright. And then they've got Stephon Thompson as the second one. Javen Wright as a middle linebacker is interesting because that dude looks like a safety. I don't know how much he's bulked up. He was a good player last year, but that's interesting. Weak side linebacker, John Bullock, Mekhi Bear. Feel pretty good about that. Left corner, Tommy Hill, Ethan Nation. Right cornerback, Bly Hill, Mario Buford. Nickelback, Malcolm Hartzog, Kobe Bretz. Safety, Isaac Gifford, Deshaun Singleton. Other safety, Marcus Buford, DeAndre Barnes. So you can find a few potential holes in there, but it's hard to find a ton. For me.
Yeah, and I'll be honest too, Jack, and I'm guessing that we're in agreement on this. Like, Tony White, man. Like, dude, I believe in that guy. That guy's been awesome, and now he's back for another year, and he has a ton of returning players too.
Yeah.
And I love this post from Husker for MU. Just having a functional offense open up the D to take a few more chances to actually get disruptive plays. Yeah, yes. And again, it's going to be so fun to watch them this year and see them not get put in those bad positions over and over and over. Because, if my hypothesis is correct, I think that is going to show itself time and time again. And time again.
Yeah. Best
great question from Josh.
Yeah. Best Nebraska been on both lines since? I have no idea.
Oh, God. Yeah. What a question.
The D-line is I'm more confident about, but it'll be interesting to see what they do with the starting line, too. What's Corcoran going to do? Corcoran, Benhart, Ben Scott, Justin Evans, Prohaska, and then you also have Mazuka, Lutovsky. Who exactly is going to get the playing time out of that? Does somebody like Gatula come in and get in that mix too? I don't even know what the offensive line is going to completely look like. So that'll be interesting. Yeah, I thought Bly Hill, though, I thought they sounded like he was going to be back for the season.
Bly Hill, yeah, there is optimism. I don't think it's like he's going to play on day one type optimism, though.
Oh, okay. I thought it was less.
At least
serious.
how I am understanding.
I thought I would have heard that it was less serious than was initially thought.
I think yes, you're right. I think the less seriousness meant he can play like a handful of games versus missing all of it.
I have one more question, Josh, to get back to the wide receivers.
Okay.
I think we're all confident they'll be better.
Yes.
Are they deep? Are they deep enough though? Right? Are they better
compared to last year, just in general?
In general, to not be a weakness on the team.
Yeah.
Because we feel good about,
how many guys do we feel good about?
Banks.
Yes.
Which is based on his
Mr.
career.
Banks.
based completely.
He was
on
good. Like unlike Nair, I think is a fun debate. Nair is interesting because he had a good year and then he has kind of been non-existent throughout the majority of his career. Banks though has been a consistent player, so like I feel very good with him.
Yeah.
Nair
and Nair,
debate, right?
And then Nair had the eye test in the spring game.
Bingo. He was Nair like Anthony.
Yes. Let's hope not. Pink eye.
Right? Here comes the post from Josh, right?
Yep, pink eye
of the eye.
I feel solid about Jalen Lloyd. Yes, fair.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Okay, so fair. So that's 2.5.
Yeah.
Ja'Cory Barney, too young to know exactly. You've heard good things, you've seen good things. Too early to really buy into that a whole lot.
Have you seen good things? Have you heard good things? Yeah.
Malachi, you got to see it. He's got to be healthy, and you got to see it, right? Before you're counting that one as a. And then, I mean, Alex Bullock. I mean, that's 5. After that, it's all question marks, right? Sure. Bullock, Janiron Bonner, Jaden Doss, Garcia Castaneda. You got 5 guys. You've got 3 guys that you potentially that I think there's a really high chance you feel very solid about. There's still question marks after that, and maybe that's not a bad place to be in, but it's not like I don't want to get too over the top in saying, okay, everything's fixed at that position now.
I think that all of those are fair points. I think if you fold in the tight ends, maybe that's when you can start feeling a little bit more confident, right? You know, you fold in a Fedoni. Here's a player that it's so funny, Jack. We rarely talk about him, but intrigue is not even the right word. Like, dude, what's going to happen with Carter Nelson this year? Like that guy, we always talk about him. Freak of an athlete. You know, he is someone that was not an early enrollee because he was going and wrecking shop in track and field. Mm-hmm. Like what kind of player is he going to be? Is he going to be totally non-existent because he is just insanely raw, or will they be able to find some, ways to get him the football and allow him to use that, athleticism to get a lot of yards or to
I have no idea. And keep in mind, he wasn't there during the spring.
Exactly.
He was running track and going to prom. So
yeah. Husker for MU, especially if Fedoni continues to progress. Yeah, like he missed how many springs, he missed how many summers, and now he has had 2 consecutive of each of those. He had 4 touchdowns last year. The thing with him now is just going to be about more consistency and about, being able to have games where he's not on the milk carton a whole lot and he's getting a lot more production and he's scoring, a touchdown. He had 4. Could he bump that to 7? I think like 6 would be like low on the improvement end, but could he get it to 7? Could he get it to 8? Masturbator, Josh, you need to do something to piss him off again. Yeah, maybe I'll say, I still don't think he's going to be an All-American or an All-Conference caliber player. Maybe I'll say that again on Twitter, and we'll see what happens.
Well, it's driving him all these workouts during the summer, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, did you watch Chasing 3? Did you watch Chasing 3
No, I'm going
hours?
to. Don't spoil it for me.
I haven't watched it. I've been watching a behind-the-scenes thing about a guy who's running in the Olympics. So you watch the Husker stuff, I watch a marathoner.
Sounds good.
Out of YouTube.
Hey, before we end this, can we talk about can we go over the playoff schedule for this year that we need?
Sure.
This is something that I saw come up in the chat. I honestly haven't looked at it in much detail here, but that came out today.
Yeah.
All right.
Do you want me to pull it up? You want to edge?
Go ahead. Why don't we talk about what that's all going to look like, because it's a fully new football experience for all of us. Especially someone had said in the chat, like, I can't remember who said this. I think it was G Merle. I think he said, like, my last day of work is the 20th and then I get a break, and he was like,
oh, nice.
The combination of college football and NFL football over that 2 weeks is going to be like nothing else. Like, all unbelievable.
Right. Well, I posted it.
So that would be that 20th. Yeah.
Yeah. So here we go. So Friday, the 20th of December at 7:00 on ABC and ESPN, there will be a first round home playoff game somewhere. So we don't know where. The following day on Saturday, the 21st, which is my wife's birthday. Sorry, honey. We're watching college football all day because at 11:00 Central Time, there's a game on TNT. At 3:00 Central Time, there's another game on TNT. And then at 7:00 Central Time, there's a game on ABC and ESPN. Jack, those games will all be on campus. Will that not be the greatest Saturday ever?
Yes. I mean, and
It's
just
gonna
count
be
Friday
insane.
night. Coming home from work that Friday night and
Oh
getting
my
ready for that first
gosh.
game with all of them coming up after it. It'll be fantastic. And of course, hopefully at least one of them will be in some level of cold weather and not either not in Florida or California or something.
Matt says Saturday morning coffee gonna be lit. Yeah, Jack, that Saturday morning coffee will be the freaking GOAT. All right,
100%. 100%.
That's round one. Sadly, in the quarters, we have to move to the Bull site. So we fast forward 10 days later, Tuesday, December 31st.
Hold on. Before you get there, there are also 2 NFL games on that Saturday. Are you kidding? I forgot about this.
Yeah, wow, that's so funny because Did
you just say that?
No, Husker Frame you mentioned in the chat, so I apologize.
Oh, I was just pulling it up. I was just
I wanted
to see who
Chiefs
it was.
Somebody
Texans at Chiefs at noon, Steelers at Ravens at 3:30. So
sign me up.
Very
Glorious
good
day.
Very good games. You're going to need multiple screens. Although if NFL's on, screw it. I'm watching college football that day.
Of course, it's the playoffs.
Forget that.
All right. Let's get to the quarters. So on New Year's Eve, 6:30 Central Time, that will be the Fiesta Bowl. So that'll be the Fiesta Bowl. All these games, by the way, moving forward now will just be ESPN, so I'm not going to say the network. So that's New Year's Eve, 6:30. So the game will end at 10-ish. Then you can do whatever you do on New Year's Eve.
It's a Tuesday night this year.
Tuesday night. Then on Wednesday, New Year's Day, a triple header. Peach Bowl at noon, Rose Bowl at 4, Sugar Bowl at 7:45. Boom, 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 boom. So those games will then decide the final 4.
Right. That's that. So that's the
but now we have an extra game that matters.
But they're playoff games. Yes.
Yes.
But they're playoff games. They're the same times that those bowls would have been, were they not?
Correct.
Games. So.
Correct.
So that'll be great. Tuesday night on New Year's Eve. I love that. It's the same thing, but
then we have to go back to work the next day.
Yeah, now that does suck a little bit. Wednesday night with a 7:45 start for the last playoff game and a work day the next day. That sucks.
Yeah.
That does suck.
How about this for you real quick, Jack? So you'll have like the first round games, and then you'll have a normal Sunday, a Monday night game. You'll do your Christmas stuff, and then you'll have Thursday night football, you'll have Friday bowl games, you'll have Saturday NFL, you'll have Sunday NFL, you'll have Monday NFL, then you'll have quarterfinals. Like, good Lord.
Tuesday, Wednesday, and then the January 2nd. I assume you'll have week 18 of the NFL. We'll have a Thursday.
No, they don't do Thursday. They don't do Thursday
they don't.
for that.
They don't. It's all TBD that week. So none on, but there'll probably be some stupid bowl on that night.
Correct. Stupid bowl. Somebody cut that out. Thank you. No. Jack just said it, not me. All right. We fast forward now to Thursday, January 9th, which is my mom's birthday. Happy birthday to my mom next year. 6:30, there will be the Orange Bowl. Friday at the same time, 6:30, there will be the Cotton Bowl. So now we are moving away from holidays, but we are staying off of Saturdays because that's the first weekend of the NFL playoffs. How do we feel, Jack, about a Thursday and a Friday night semifinal playoff game?
I love Friday night. I love them not being on Monday night. I'll tell you that right now.
Well,
that's coming.
Sorry, Jack. The national championship's on
coming later, but to actually get one of those 2 games on a non-work night is a delight.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, because a lot of people are like, I don't want that on a Friday. I want to go out and go to the bars or whatever.
Yeah, that's it.
Do. Yeah.
No, if it has to be
old, we're tired.
If it has to be a weeknight, at Thursday night is fine with me. So that actually is a big improvement. That's good.
Okay. And then Monday, January 20th, the national championship game.
That's stupid as hell, and it always is.
So you want the national title on like a Friday?
Of course I do, Josh.
Oh, I guess, when you don't, I guess so.
Why? Everyone wants that. Everyone.
Do they?
Yes, except for I heard Happer make an argument that he doesn't care and it's on a Monday.
It doesn't bother me. We watch Monday Night Football all year long. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah, but
by the way, it's earlier this year, Jack. 6:30. That's freaking early.
That's good. That's. I'll take that. All of those games are at 6:30, aren't they? On at least those semifinal games.
We're gonna have to do
except for that New Year's Day one that's gonna start at 7:45 and go to midnight.
Sleepy. Jeez. Matt says we don't start work at 2 p.m., Josh. JK.
Yeah, no kidding.
Don't you dare, Matt. I was working this morning at 6:30, so let's settle down.
Whoa,
Jack,
whoa.
I know you're up earlier. What are we going to do? I mean, we're going to have to do some fun pod stuff around something. I mean, a Saturday night reaction to the playoff. Do we dare do a Saturday reaction on the 21st? To those games? Well, my wife's birthday is that night. So I'll ask her if that's okay.
True. She might not want you to do that.
We're going to have to do something. We're going to have to
do a halftime show.
Yeah, that sounds fun as hell.
We could do a halftime show of that game.
Maybe we go on in between the 3:00 game and the 7:00 game.
A little pregame action.
Yeah, so we talk about the 3 games that have been played, and then we talk about the final game.
Could be.
Alex, you'll have bigger of a reaction. Jack, can you imagine?
Oh, yeah, you will.
Imagine? So yeah, that's what we got to look. Okay, I don't want to do this though. I like that the sun is setting at 9 something. I'm looking out my office window.
Take it easy, Bishop.
There's still sunlight.
Jeez, here's Josh. Doesn't want to get too far into the. He wants his seasons.
No, come on, man. I just don't want it to be freezing. I want regular football season. I don't want January football season. Not yet.
September.
I like June. I'm good with June.
We are a mere, I don't know, probably 7 weeks away from the NFL preseason game. Probably.
Good Lord, game. Jack. We're like 8 weeks, not even away from the Olympics starting. Okay,
exciting.
Come on. Support America.
Euro and CONCACAF or something. Don't yell at me, Brandon.
Good Lord.
Hey,
by the way,
whatever the Americas one is, it's not.
Speaking of Olympians, I had a chance last night to talk to a 2-time Olympian for my podcast for an hour. It was great.
Olympian in what event?
I'm not going to tell you. I'll have to
running
listen to the podcast. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Or a hockey player. Oh, running.
No,
okay.
it's hockey. Welcome to Chasing 3 Hours. What was your most recent
Maybe it was about his running training for the big hockey team situation.
No, definitely not. No. So yeah, I know you look forward to. I'm saving this interview, Jack. Plus, I have $1 million in the can. It'll come out the Friday that the Olympics start.
I got $1 million in the can. I bet you do.
You're so weird.
All right,
Carol Frost. Okay, well played.
Hold on, real quick. We had a debate on our show after Carol Frost broke the record for 80-year-olds for throwing. Was it the discus or the shot put? I can't remember, but she broke some record for that. And Caleb and I had a discussion on the show. Caleb was a thrower in college. He threw javelin, but he also coached the other throws. And we asked, if Caleb trained me for a month, could I beat Carol Frost in the throwing events?
Like now?
Right now. She's Lord. In her 80s. Wouldn't that be the best? She would never go for it, but would that not be the best bit?
That'd be a great bit.
Wouldn't that be the best freaking bit?
That'd be a good bit.
Like me versus Carol.
It'd be a
and eventually I would have to lose because that would make it better, but
Yeah. That'd be a good bit.
All right. That is it. We are back here on Saturday morning for the live show. If you're watching this on YouTube before Saturday, you can still watch it live. Go to if you're not Facebook, go to
Facebook,
Patreon. I'm reverting back to my
Facebook.com/ID Club. Hey, by the way, Jack, I did
Patreon.com. Yes.
I changed our URL for our YouTube page. So if you go to youtube.com, and this is so weird, /@I80 Club, you can subscribe to our I80 Club YouTube
it used to have
channel.
Some goofy numbers behind it.
Yeah, it was I80 Club 68, which is not nice.
Nice.
It's one number away. But yeah, go subscribe. Jack has been putting up a ton of videos. He also organized the page so it doesn't look like garbage anymore. Yes. Shout out to Jack Mitchell.
It bugged me to look at it.
Dude, thank you. Go subscribe. YouTube.com/@I80 Club or Patreon.com/I80 Club. We do Wednesdays. We do Saturday mornings. During football season, we are going to do a Saturday night show. Not to mention the Discord community. Great conversation. And Jack usually devolves into doing a robot for some reason whenever I start talking. And then he does that thing with his hands. Wow, look at Jack.
Slow.
He can do weird things. Wave. Can you do the pancake? Yeah, you can't do the pancake. That's not. No, you got to do it.
Is that a dance?
No, like this, like that. You don't know how to do the pancake.
Yeah, no, it just looks. Well. You don't look like you're doing anything cool.
Yeah, no.
So I think I'm doing it. Cool.
Matt says that was an amazing offseason episode. Matt, thank you.
Thank you, Matt. And thank you for your help, too. And thank you, Brendan. And sorry I screwed up the America's
CONCACAF
tournament.
All right. We'll be back on Saturday. Jack, say goodbye.
Goodbye.